Greetings, friends, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Life with Me, Myself, and I Am. Val's House International Ministries exists to creatively bring the gospel of hope to life through Bible studies, podcasts, conferences, and retreats, both live and virtual, designed to strengthen faith, bring hope and healing to others, and above all, to glorify God. For more information about Val's House Ministries, please check out the show notes. Life with Me, Myself, and I Am would like to thank the generous donors and partners of Val's House Ministries for your continued support. And now, on to our show.
Well, welcome everyone back to Life with Me, Myself, and I Am. I'm Stephanie Fagans, and with me are my cohorts, LaNette Jewell and Kristy Brunson. Hey, welcome back, girls.
Hey,
Excited to be here.
Gals.
Missed you.
Yeah.
And over 60, you can call me a girl anytime. I'll kiss you.
All right. And you ask for your driver's license.
That's right.
Yeah, just to make sure. From our last episode, we were talking about what is Val's House and how we're reaching out virtually and in person, and just how to help people know that they're valued, accepted, and loved, no matter where they're at, no matter what they've been through. And so let's talk about that a little bit as I hit my mic, but you never know. Let's talk with my hand. Apparently this is a hand talking day.
Get ready to duck, y'all.
Yeah, really.
I think it's important for any program that we're doing, any event that we sponsor, whether it's the Life with Me, Myself, and I Am, whether it's a conference that we're doing, whether it's the one-on-one ministry time that we're doing, is that everyone needs a safe place to talk about what's really going on in your life. We all are broken at times, and then there's times when we're not, and it's those times when we're not that maybe we get to pour into other people. But never judge people. You don't know, and I'm going to tell part of that story today about someone who went through a terrible thing, and then his life turned out to really harm someone else. But we never know what people are going through, and it's not our job to judge. God gets that job, and he just tells us to love. You know, we are disciples, we'll be known by our love, and you don't love people by judging them by what they've gone through. So it's a welcome, cousins. Thanks for loving me just as I am.
That's right.
Well, if you missed that last episode, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. And if you're like me and have no idea how to find it on the YouTube channel, there's a link to it in our show notes. And there's also Life with Me, Myself, and I Am playlist that you can find all of our past episodes on. Mm-hmm. So check those out. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and leave us a comment. You know, we'd love to hear from you. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless it's criticism, I don't want to hear that. So just send that directly to them.
Okay.
So,
and we will block you.
They're tougher. They can take that.
Grown thick skin over the years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, today's episode is entitled Heart-Wrenching to Heartwarming. And in that, we're going to throw in a little hope dispensing too.
Amen. Amen.
One of our conferences that we've done was called Storm Shelter, and I think that goes along a lot with the heart-wrenching portion of our talk today. Storm Shelter, oh my goodness. The stories that came out of that, the tragedies that we were brought through, but the point is we were brought through them. God protects us. He keeps us in his hand. He puts us in the cleft of the rock. He just surrounds us as we sit in his lap with his arms, just like a good dad. So I loved that. We were able to reconnect with some old friends that we had gone to church with in different places before. That's what new friends, old friends, young, old, who knows? Somewhere in between.
That's what's been fun about the ministry. It's always been a wide variety of ages. So you'll come and you'll see a teenager and you'll see an 80-year-old and everything in between. So it's great.
Yeah, and just the lives that are touched by these conferences. I think the next one that we're going to have is actually going to be virtual. So we're very thankful for the venues that we're able to reach other people. Yeah, I'm going to need that again. Yeah, it happens to me all the time.
You know, that conference that you're talking about, Steph, the storm shelter was really, people gave different testimonies of storms that they had gone through, and really the question was, where do you run when a storm arises? You know, what shelter are you? You know, are you hitting the bottle? Are you taking drugs? You self-pity? You know, or are you running to Him? And it's really the first conference where I really told the story I'm going to share today, most of it. And I remember, because I used to try to meet everybody that would come to a conference, and I remember that particular one. I just was watching a lady sitting clear in the back at that table, and at lunchtime, she didn't get up to go get food. So I went over to introduce myself to her, and I said, "Yeah, hi, I'm LaNette." And she didn't introduce herself. She just looked up to me with these big puppy dog eyes, and she said, "My daughter died." So there was that connect, you know. But she's still a part of the group to this day, and she's been such a part in helping other people heal, you know, from losing a child tragically. So God's just so good, so good to use our storm, you know, and He clears away the clouds. He's the biggest hope dispenser.
Well, I think the most important thing, though, is there is hope on the other side.
Absolutely.
And that is so important to remember to hang on to.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that has stood out to me so much about, you know, the ladies in Val's house. You know, going back to kind of what we talked about last episode, just that transparency. And it feels like such a safe place that everybody feels kind of comfortable sharing, hey, here's what I went through, and here's what my experience was, and here's, you know, the strength that God gave me to get through that, and here's what it looks like on the other side of it. Yeah. And so when folks are, you know, transparent and willing to share that, no matter what it is you're going through, I think that's, you know, that's kind of that hope that opens the door, you know, and you can see that there is light, you know, there is a possibility of things being better.
Absolutely.
And hope comes alive in you. You're so renewed with vim and vigor. I love how you say that, LaNette. Vim and vigor.
Yes, that's right.
But the strength helps you stay positive, even though storms are going on all around you. It's just through the most difficult times and the best of times. Where do you go to? Who do you call on as your shelter? And that conference just so impacted me in a good way and a not so good way, because it made me really look at some things that I needed to maybe rethink where I do run in a storm, and then it's not to bed. So, God is our anchor, and we are always in His hands. LaNette, why don't you share your story with us?
Okay, so, you know, you just said, you know, where do we run to? And this story that I want to share with you is really not a time that I ran to Him, but He ran to me. And that just shows what a big love bug Jesus is, to be honest with you. And I want to share something with you at home. These two ladies have heard part of the story. I don't know if you've heard the whole story that I really feel like compelled to say today, to share. But I want to say this. I am not going to share this story with you to break your heart. If we leave this podcast and you leave sad, I have told this story wrong. What I want to share with you today is that we can go through very heartbreaking scenarios, and if we allow God to love us through that, it really does become a very heartwarming situation. So if I have not pointed you to the saving grace and knowledge of Jesus Christ, I have told this story wrong. I also want to ask for a little bit of grace, because the story I'm going to share with you happened a very long time ago in my life. It happened in October of 1993, so about 27 and a half years ago. And I've told the story a lot, but I haven't told it for a long time. So I'm just going to trust that the Holy Spirit will allow me to share this with you from His perspective and what He would like told today. But I want you to know that if you see me at a time where I'm breaking down, get a little bit teary-eyed, this is not because I am reliving the pain. God has healed me a lot in the last 27 and a half years. But what I get emotional about now, majority of the time, in telling this story, is the presence of the Holy Spirit that I experienced outside of my sister's apartment that night changed who I am. And so when I tell the story, I experience him all over again like it just happened this morning. And I love that. But it also, his presence overwhelms me. And I think that does any of us, when you know that the whole host of heaven's angels are with you, and you feel that, and you feel their wings just surrounding you and holding you, it
one of the most powerful experiences.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So this story with me, I was the oldest of 4 children. I have a brother who's 15 months younger than I am, and a sister who's 4 years younger than I am. And then when I was nearly 15, my mom gave birth to my youngest sister. And so she was an afterthought to my parents, but not to God, because he's so intentional, right? So her name was Valerie, and she was the apple of everybody's eye. She was a cute little booger, very funny. She had the extraordinary sense of humor as a little bitty snot, and we'd play games. We couldn't beat her. I mean, she was just good at everything she did. So, but now, obviously, with this poor kid was like being raised around 5 parents. As we all just took care of her and loved her so much. So when this event happened, it's really pulled the rug out from under my whole family, or could have been a whole lot worse than what it was. But at the time, I want to tell you about my 2 sisters both worked at the Denton State School at the time, and Valerie worked 6 to 2. She would get off work and go to my sister's house and would wait there for my other sister's 2 boys to get off of the bus, and then she would keep them until my sister got off work. My other sister worked 2 to 10 at the same place. And this one particular night, I remember it was October 11th, 1993. And our family was close, so it was like at some point during the day, somebody would have talked to everybody. And I remember my mom saying, "Has anyone heard from Valerie today?" And I remember just glancing up at the clock, and it was 8 o'clock. And I said, "No, I haven't." And why somebody just didn't pick up the phone and call at that time, I don't know. But the following day, when my mom knew she would be off work about 2:30, Mom started trying to call her, and there was no answer. So she called me at work about 5 o'clock. She said, "Nettie, I don't know what's going on. Valerie's not responding." And where I worked, not so far from where Valerie lived, I said, "Okay, don't worry about it." She'd had a car that was breaking down a lot, so I thought, she's probably broke down somewhere between her apartment and work. So I got off work, and I went and I traced every possible way that she could have taken, and didn't find any evidence of a broken down car. So I went on to pick my kids up, take them to soccer practice. My mom was with me. And, you begin getting a little sick feeling when you know something's not right. And so I remember dropping my kids off for soccer practice, and I told the coach, I said, "I'm going to be right back." I said, "My sister's missing. I'm just going to run over to her apartment," which is pretty close to where the kids were practicing soccer. And so my mom and I went over there, and I knock on the door. There's no knock, but her car was in the driveway. So we went on home. My mom actually went to my other sister's house to watch her boys, and I went back to my home, and then I told my mom, I said, "Well, when my other sister Dee gets off work, ask her, did Valerie come in that morning?" Kristy, this is prior to, we didn't have cell phones back in the day, so we actually had to do things. And I said, "And let me know." So about 10 minutes after 10, my mom calls me, and she said, "Valerie did not show up for work today." I said, "Well, did she call in?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Find out," because it would not have been it would not have been like her to not show up and not call in. So she called right back. She goes, "No, she didn't even call in." So, I slammed the phone down. I picked up the phone, and I called the police. "Here's the address. Please meet me there." And I'm about 15 minutes away from her apartment. And ladies, this is what happened. I pull into that apartment, and I see probably 5 detective cars, 3 squad cars. I see men in suits. I see police officers going all around. So I park in front of my sister's apartment, and these 3 police officers come toward me. But I want you, before I even tell you what they said to me, when I opened my car door, this is not a joke. I remember praying all the way there. God, if you've taken her home, please let her body be in that apartment, because I couldn't imagine telling my mom she's gone and we don't know where she is. But when I showed up, of course, having been with the Lord, I knew he was in my car with me. But when I showed up at the apartment and opened that car door, I felt like the entire presence of heaven came rushing at me. They held me. It was warm. It was receptive. So it comforted me and scared me all at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So these 3 police officers walked toward me and they said, "Are you Miss Walker's family?" I said, "I'm her oldest sister." And I tried to walk around, and he held up his arm. He goes, "I can't let you in there." And I looked at him, just waiting for him to say what I knew he was going to say. "I'm sorry to let you know, your sister's gone. She's passed away." And I remember just turning my back and just screaming. It felt like I screamed for 20 minutes. I probably screamed for 20 seconds. And I was just crying at the Lord, "Lord, no, 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 you can't take Valerie. Not the baby, not the prize of our family, not, she's the it of our family, not her. I'm the older, I've lived longer. Why was, immediately, no, 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 Lord." And, but when I stopped screaming, and this is when, the reality, this began, I'm already feeling the presence, but I hear in my ear the strongest voice of Jesus. And all I hear him say at that moment is, "Lord, take this cup from me." And when he said that, I immediately thought, "Oh, Lord, even you went through something you did not want to go through." And I know this sounds silly, but it brought me a comfort that I was in the presence of someone who knelt at a rock and said, "Father, take this cup from me." And I was being asked to do something in my life that was personal to a few people. Jesus was being asked to take everyone's sins to a cross so that we could spend eternity with the Father if we accept what he's done. So it just brought me peace. Lord Jesus, you are with me. You are with me. So I spent the next hour and a half. I was being interrogated. It's like, at first they actually told me that she had committed suicide. And as the oldest sister, and as the very day before she died, she came to me and said, "Can I move in with you for a little while? I've got to save up money to buy a new car because her car kept breaking down." And so I, as the oldest sister, and hearing that she killed herself, first of all, I said, "No, she didn't." And the police officer coming, "Now, honey, no one wants to believe that their family member would do this." But I thought, as the oldest sister, if I would have just put her rear end in my car when she asked me that and took her home with me. So I was so guilt-ridden, it was my fault that this had happened. But then later on, they would come out and they said, "Did she have a VCR? Did she have, this?" And so eventually they told me that she had been, it was a homicide, that she had been murdered. And I said, and actually that she had a wire coat hanger around her neck. And so I remember kind of getting a little bit angry at that time, saying, "If she has a coat hanger around her neck, why would you tell me she committed suicide? I mean, how do you? And so, long story short, it's just the whole guilt thing and the sister. But at the same time, it was right after that, right? They were about ready to release me to go home, trying to deal with this whole thing. And at this whole time, I'm also, what's on my mind? I got to go home and tell my mom. And so, what I honestly thought? I was going to bury 2 people that week. That's what I thought. Because my mom had always said, "I know God will never ask me to give up one of my children because he promises that he will never put on us more than we can handle." When I realized I'm about to tell her what she said I can't handle, I will die if one of my kids die. I started calling her doctor. I wanted him on the line, so I wanted to go get her some medication to have on hand because I knew what was going to happen. So right before I left there, I hear the Lord again in my ear, and he said, "Yet not my will, but yours." And I thought, what are you asking me to do? What are you asking me to do? In that moment, do you understand that? In that moment, in an hour and a half, in that moment, the Lord comes to me and said, "Take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours." He is calling me to something, and I know that. And I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? And he come to me. There's this powerful, it was sweet, but it was firm. He said, LaNette, you see this little picture, and it hurts. And he said, I see this big picture of what I want to do this. He goes, I didn't cause your sister's death. But if you will allow me, I'm going to use this. And I will use you. And together we can partner, and we will change lives through this.
Glory.
For his glory, absolutely. So I knew when I left there that night that the dreams that I started having when I was 19, that's how this was going to come about. And for the next 2 years, my phone rang off the wall because people began hearing about the testimony. He was so personal that night, with me, and the presence, it just stayed with me. So I had an opportunity for a long time just to go to different churches, go to women's meetings, and to share with them what God does and can do through tragedy. And I want to say this. That night when I pulled into my mom's driveway, she knew. She told me later, she said, Nettie, I knew that if everything was okay, you would find a phone and you would call me and let me know everything was okay. She said, but I also knew if something was wrong, you would come to tell me in person. So this is by midnight about this time, I pull into her driveway and she saw my lights hit the driveway. And I open my door and all I hear is this blood-curdling scream that I never want to hear again. I opened the door, and my brother-in-law had just got up to grab hold of my mom, and she just looked at me. I could still see the look on her face, and she said, is my baby dead? And I just shook my head, and she just collapsed. So we picked her up. We got her on the couch. I called a friend of mine who was a nurse, just lived a couple blocks from my mom. I said, I need you over here right now. So she came over, and my mom was deaf in her right ear. We set Mom up. Karen is on one side of her, and she's taking her vitals, and she's talking to my mom. Maxine, you have to calm down. These kids do not need to lose 2 people this week. And I'm praying in her ear, and my mom told me later, she said, you know what, Nettie, she said, I'm deaf in my right ear, but I heard every word you prayed. And so, we ended up taking her to the hospital, and we almost lost her that night, but not one time did I ever get invited somewhere did my mom not go. So she heard the story over and over and over, but she would not miss supporting me and what I was called to do. And then she got where I could call her up. Now my mom, if you knew my mom, she was extremely shy. Her own shadow about scared her to death. But she got to where she could stand up and join me on a podium or in front of a microphone in front of a ladies group and tell how it impacted her. So what we surrender to God, he really can use. And it does come from this heart-wrenching to this heart-warming event because he's so real, girls. I don't care what we go through. When he came to me, he knew what I was going to walk into. And he was there waiting for me. And you know what that brought me comfort is I thought, Jesus, if you love me enough to be there for me when I was about to hear what happened, then you were there for her when she was going through that process of transitioning from here. And when he said, she's with me. Don't worry about her. She is with me. It's you that's got the work to do. And there's a lot of things that really brought me comfort through that.
And the amount of hope that you were able to speak out to different people, to know that even though somebody's gone through this tragedy, that there is another side. You can come out of it. Absolutely. And God will use everything for his glory.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, that night I had a decision. I could go home, I could pull blankets up over my head. I could get mad because I watched my mom go through this. I could be angry the rest of my life. Or I could choose to go all in with Christ. And I'm telling you, over the next year and a half in particularly, and then through the murder trial itself, he began to transform who I was into who I am. And I'm still a work in progress, let me tell you. Well, y'all know, let me tell you, I'm still a work in progress. But he's so personal, he's so warm, he's funny. Jesus is actually pretty funny. And when I get too stressed, he shows up with a hula hoop. And we hula hoop. And I tell you, even with the robot, he is a whole lot better at it than I am. But he makes me laugh. So he's a great sense of humor.
Well, LaNette, can't imagine kind of the roller coaster of emotions that you must have gone through. Grief and growth, both. Neither one of them are linear. They're, it's step forward, step back, and it's kind of step up and step down and all over the place. What would you say is maybe your biggest lesson that you learned out of the whole experience?
There's a couple of things, Kristy. Number one, you realize when you go through something like that and you have the Holy Spirit show up in person, you realize that when you're studying the Bible, you're not just reading a story. You're reading truth of who He is, not who He just was, but who He is. But the biggest thing that I learned, and that God still takes me back to this day, when maybe I get a little bit too big for my britches, or feel like maybe I have the right to judge someone, the Lord keeps reminding me of this. And it's when I learned what true forgiveness was all about. Let me tell you about what happened through this story that brought this to life for me. And because of what I had gone through outside of her apartment that night, the Lord and I became really tight. So I was able to forgive him pretty quickly. Not the rest of my family. As a matter of fact, they were mad because I had. But when we went to start the murder trial, it was in July of 1995. It's like a year and a half after she had died. I was on the witness list because the DA's office called me one time and says, I need you to bring your mom up here. I said, why? And they said, well, we need someone that will identify a live picture of your sister and then a dead picture of your sister. I said, you're not putting my mom on the stand. Because she says, that'll be the most compelling. I said, I don't give a rat's keister. That's not happening. You're not. I said, I was there that night. If you need to torture someone with that one, you put me on the stand. So that's what they ended up doing. So the first 3 days of the trial, I was not allowed in there because I was not allowed to hear any of the testimony. So I would just be outside meeting. And I got to meet the man who killed her, actually. And he was actually arrested and confessed the day that we buried her. When we got home from her funeral, the phone was ringing and the detective said, we got him, he's confessed. So fast forward, I'm sitting outside here, and I'm sitting on a bench, and I hear this lady talking, and by listening to her, I find out, she is his sister. And my heart hurt for her because I lost a sister, but in a way she lost a brother. And so she never knew who I was until we ran. But I got to pray with her, and I got to talk with her outside. And how beautiful is that? Seriously,
what a gift!
Isn't that?
Oh gosh.
Just to comfort her. And when I remember when I took the stand and she realized who it was that prayed for her, I can remember her just going, it's like, I don't know what. I never got to talk with her again. But I remember the day they said, get ready, you're up next. And I remember just all these emotions going through me because I thought, Lord, you have made me strong. You have really, this event transformed me, and it brought me closer to him. And I thought, I need you right now. Because I am, as a sister, I already forgiven him. But as a sister, I'm about to lay eyes on him for the first time. I've seen his picture in the paper, but I'm about to lay eyes on the man who killed her. So I'm trying to prepare myself for that. So I remember when they called me and they opened the door, and every emotion you can imagine was there. So I'm walking down, and all I can see is the back of his head. And I see my mom, and I can reach over and grab her on my way to the witness stand. And as I take the stand, I'm sworn in. I'm not talking to the Lord now. I'm just talking to myself. I'm going, sometimes the Lord just butts in. I remember saying, okay, LaNette, you can do this. Just go ahead and glance over and look him eye to eye. And as I did, I just looked over there, and no kidding, this is what he did. He looks at me and he goes, like, what are we doing here? So I'm just saying to myself, there's the man who killed my sister. Girls, I'm not kidding you. The Lord firmly, this firm voice in my head says, and you've told a lie. And I remember being pretty darn offended at that one. I said, I'm saying to myself, I said, Lord, he murdered my sister, and you've gossiped. But you see what he was doing?
Yeah.
He was leveling the playing field. He said, LaNette, my son's blood covers even murder. And if that man ever calls on my son's name, you will spend eternity with him. And I thought, Jesus, you are who I want to serve. Because if you can love even a murderer, you can love me. I know what I've been through. I know my story. You know what? I might not have murdered someone. I might not have taken someone's life. But my words sometimes have hurt someone to the point that maybe it killed part of their soul. And I thought, Jesus, thank you that you were that his love. He wasn't there in that courtroom to just make sure I was okay. He was there saying, say my name, say my name, say my name. And he would have just grabbed that man up because he loves him too. And, you know, he's serving a life sentence, and he's in his 50s now. And I really, you know, I hope and pray someday. I know what prison he's at, but I hope the Lord opens his door for me at some point that I can go. Oh, I haven't, but they dropped on the floor. But that, I just want to serve the Lord. Because he loves us all no matter what. And that's what our story is, you know.
Yeah.
That you are valued.
Thank God.
No matter what you've gone through. And I'll just go ahead and tell you this story real quick because I mean, he'd already been found guilty, so they go through this sentencing phase, right? So I remember that, and this is the story that really, really allowed me just to totally release this man for the murder of my sister. When he was 3 years old, he was probably a rambunctious 3-year-old, you know. I don't know what he did wrong, they never said, but as a punishment, his stepdad takes him into the basement of their home where they have one of those old furnaces, you know, that have the live fire in there, and he sticks something, probably, you know, he's a piece of metal, anyway, into that fire. Got this little kid in one hand, and he's getting this iron hot, and he pulls this baby's shirt up and brands this child as a punishment for whatever it was he did. And the abuse stories just kept coming. You know what, and like the prosecutor said, it's not Valerie's fault that he went through that. She should not have lost her life. But you know what? What if you and I had gone through something like that? What if we turned to drugs? Because that ultimately what he did is he broke into her home to rob her of some jewelry and some other things that he actually sold for $75 for a hit of crack cocaine. What if we went through that, girls? What if there were scars on our body and our hearts, and then we began to numb our pain with drugs or alcohol or whatever? And in a desperate moment, and I don't have money for my next hit that's going to take all this pain away, I go into this apartment, I break in, and someone comes in, and I'm thinking, oh my geez, my only way out is through that door, and I've got to take her with me. I'm not saying what he did was right, but it makes you understand that we don't know people's stories. Right. We don't. Right. And it does not give us a right to judge anybody for how they are. I'm going to tell you what, when I goof up, and it's a lot, I find it comforting that Jesus forgives me, you know, for it all. And because I know what he's forgiven me for, it makes it easier to even look in the eyes of a murderer and say, I'm going to let this go. You know, and I had prayed for this man. I wrote him letters. His brain was so destroyed by the drugs, he really didn't comprehend. But I hope at some point he can comprehend enough before he takes his life or say, Jesus, Jesus. Because I know what if he were to be ushered in to heaven, I know who would be the first ones to welcome him. And it'd be Valerie. Oh, yeah. She would be there. Welcome home.
She had that kind of heart.
She did. She really did. So
that's pretty much how you came to name the ministry.
Yeah.
Was to honor Valerie too.
I think one of the beautiful things that you were just talking about, the forgiveness that God passed along to you to pass along to this person who had affected your life so monumentally. There's a line of a song, and it's escaping me what the name of the song is and who even sings it, but it's forgiveness is the prisoner that it really frees is you.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
and you certainly could have been locked up in that, you know, in that prison of withholding forgiveness and of bitterness and of anger and you know, praise God that He gave you that grace to pass along, and you know, kind of to what you said. I mean, there's absolutely times for each and every one of us that you know we behave less than stellar, and I'm so grateful that same grace is offered to all of us.
Absolutely. And I think that every time we take the stage at a conference, or every time we're doing a one-on-one ministry session, or every time we're at a group meeting, or every time we sit at these microphones, then we have the opportunity to use real life stories and say, let's pour hope into people. Because we've needed it, we realize that you need it, and we are here to tell you it's worth it.
Yes.
Push through whatever it is you're going through, because heart-wrenching really does, if you allow the Holy Spirit to walk you through whatever it is you're going through, the good, bad, and the ugly of life. It does become heartwarming. You will understand more His heart, how much He loves everybody, and that includes you. I don't care what you've done. Sometimes we are forgiving other people for what they have done to us, and a lot of times we just need to forgive ourselves because we have not walked out a perfect journey either. Hope is for all of us. And Jesus is that anchor that secures us. He is firm. He's secure. Reach out to Him. He's there every time.
That's right. And continue to be a hope dispenser.
Absolutely.
For everyone. I mean, if God can give you hope, why can't you give hope to someone else?
Absolutely.
I think one of the one of the funniest, or not funniest, but the coolest things that I've seen in a while, one of our ladies is a great artist. And she has designed a coloring page for our devotional, our 14-day devotional. And it's a bubblegum machine. And on all of the bubble gums that's in the machine, it says hope on each and every one of them. And then the one that's tumbling out also has hope on it. So that's just the greatest picture of being a hope dispenser. Is that bubblegum machine.
Exactly.
Dole it out like gumballs.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Throw it around. Sprinkle it.
That's
Sprinkle
right.
it everywhere. Well, the stories, the testimonies that we get to share through our conferences, through times like these on our podcast, we just hope that they encourage you and let you know how much God does love you and how much you're important to Him and you're important to us. And if there's any comments that you'd like to share with us, we'd love to see them below. And we just appreciate being able to share these testimonies with everybody.